The topic I want to talk about today is CPM and Facebook costs, because this has been coming up a lot more, again, like it does all the time. I mean, everyone's always talking about Facebook is expensive, I want to bring my costs down, etc. We spoke in this week's agency client review meeting. By the way, we have a weekly review of all the accounts together as a team, and we brainstorm ideas and come up with solutions. And we noticed a couple of the accounts are still struggling with higher CPMs than we'd like. So conversion rate is good, average order value is good, for example. And I often say that with CPM, so CPM, first of all, cost per 1,000 impressions, it's how kind of Facebook are looking at what to charge you, essentially. So if you want to reach 1,000 people, sometimes the CPM is low because maybe there's not that much competition, or maybe you're going after people that like to engage or brand awareness. The broader the objective is of what your goal is from Facebook, generally the lower the CPM is, because it comes down to how big the audiences are, what the competition's like, and also what the value of that one individual, and obviously many in the group, is to you and to Facebook. So if I give you the simplest example, if you are going after a particular user and you are going after the page post engagement objective, the value generally is lower, both to you and to Facebook. And there are far more people who are likely to engage in an ad than there are to buy it. Now, because of that and because of the auction dynamics, you pay less for that user. If you're after someone who's recently purchased, has purchased many times, has purchased within your niche, etc., take beauty and hair care, for example. This is a common one where we often see with beauty and hair care, CPMs are generally just high, and it can be harder to bring those costs down. There's definitely some ways, and I'll show you that shortly. But in the beauty and hair care niche in particular, the CPMs are high because if you think about the audience here, so generalizing, women 25 to 45, let's say. And that's a super competitive niche wherever you go, because everyone wants to target the people that are most likely to buy. And generally speaking, that market is generally a higher propensity to buy audience than others. So if you take that, then you layer on, I want people that have bought beauty products or hair care products, etc. Then you look at all the competitors in your market, whether it's the US or a European country or worldwide, it doesn't matter what it is. For every advertiser like you that wants to access that particular demographic, there's probably like thousands and thousands of competitors out there. So what Facebook have to do is figure out, right, you want access to this demographic. What am I going to charge you? What can I charge you that's going to attract you to spend more with us, but at the same time, make sure that we give the user the best experience we can give them as well. Because if you followed any of the previous discussions where I talk about the three main players when it comes to Facebook advertising, there's Facebook, there's the user, and then there's you. And ultimately, the main thing that Facebook's looking at is, yes, they want your money as an advertiser, but if they're going to weigh up, do I want this advertiser or do I want this user? They would choose the user 10 out of 10 times, because without users, there is no advertising, there is no Facebook, for example. So if you take that in mind, when Facebook's looking at pricing, it's saying which advertiser can give the user the best experience. It might sound obvious, maybe that's something you've not thought about before, but when you really understand that, that's when you can start to make gains in reducing your costs, and by doing so, getting better users from the auction. So, one of the key things about this is when you are looking at your ad campaigns and things are rolling on, if generally the results are good, whatever you're measuring, cost per acquisition, cost per lead, return on ad spend, cost per whatever, registration, when things are going well, often people will neglect looking at some of the other metrics. And it's not to say you have to look at absolutely everything all the time. But for example, we were looking at a client ad account today. And we noticed that the CPMs were creeping up, although ROAS was really good. So this is an e-com store, for example. We're looking at the ROAS is 350%, and it's way over their target. They're spending, I don't know, 8K a day. And you can look at that and say, things are great. Let's just continue piling more money in. But because I've been doing this for so long, I know the things that could go wrong. And with the creeping CPMs, that means gradually I'm paying more for my acquisition costs, more for my clicks, etc. If for any reason that conversion rate drops, the costs are going to rise and my return on ad spend is going to get more expensive. So even though CPM, our costs are not a major concern on that account right now, we're still keeping an eye. We're looking at, right, what can we do to analyze why the CPMs are creeping up and what do we do about it? In some cases, there's nothing you can do because CPM is often driven by the auction. Take, for example, when we come into, and this is the particular time when CPMs are impacted most, is the last 2 weeks of March. This has happened since I can remember, going back 6-7 years. The last 2 weeks of March, just a universal rule that seems to happen is that the costs rise. So that, you know, whatever niche you're in, generally the costs go up. So what's actually happening is a lot of the big advertisers out there, they often, and I'm talking about like they've got millions and millions and millions of, or even tens of millions of budget to spend. And these are kind of global brands and things like that. When it comes to setting their budgets for the year, often the next year is based on how much you spent the previous year plus what you're asking for, etc. Sometimes what happens is, let's say you have a $10 million budget for the year, the 12 months from April to March. If you don't spend all of that, often the finance team will come back and say, well, you know, you asked for $10 million, you've only spent 8 million. Why are you asking for 12 million for the following year? Because you failed to spend that. So what sometimes happens is agencies and in-house teams will panic spend towards the end of the financial year, sometimes end of the quarter. And it seems to hit March the most because a lot of companies have their financial years April to May. So what happens is that the costs go up just because there's so much more competition coming in from people with bigger budgets that don't generally care as much as you do about ROAS, CPA, CPL, and all those kind of things. They just want to get that budget out there because their next year depends on it. So when you're playing against that, that becomes a lot more difficult. Now, in that kind of situation, that's competition based. You can't really do much about that. There are some advanced strategies where you can go into manual bidding, or you could just pull your budget back. Like, bear in mind, Facebook is not a guaranteed return, right? There are going to be occasions where sometimes your results are not performing as well as they need to, and you need to take a step back, reduce your budgets, analyze what's going on. But for example, take the last 2 weeks of March, when those costs do come up, if you're not going to go aggressive and start manual bidding and start pushing, sometimes you have to take a step back and realize that. And this is something I want you to take away as well. In these kind of situations, making wholesale changes can have a massive negative impact. So if you're in this phase, let's say end of March, end of April, May, June, etc. So at the end of the quarter, if you start to see these CPMs creeping up, keep that in the back of your mind that it could be something way out of your control that's actually causing your cost to go up. And the worst thing you can do is to change your strategy. So you're like, you know, my results are all over the place. I'm going to try new audiences. I'm going to scrap the strategy that was working 2 weeks ago. I'm going to try something new. I've seen something in a Facebook group. I've seen these hacks. I'm going to multiply and duplicate, and that will bite you in the butt. Because what often happens, and I see this so many times, is people will steer away from what was working because the costs have gone up, and they're like, clearly I'm doing something wrong. But it could be that it's out of your control. So just bear that in mind before you start thinking about wholesale changes. Is the cost that I'm seeing go up due to external factors? And you know, that's why, you know, I run these private groups and these private sessions as I do in the training, so that you can ask. Like, I in the agency have access to some big numbers, and we get to see across the board what's happening as well. So you know, for a lot of you, as you're starting off on your spends, or you know, managing fewer accounts, maybe you're not seeing the global picture. And I'm not saying we have enough to show a global picture, but certainly within the accounts we've got, we can see a lot of the trends that happen. So for example, if we've got 10 accounts and the CPMs go up at the same time and they're in different niches, well, guess what? That's probably something outside of our control, and we can make better decisions based on that as well. However, there are many situations, and forgetting the external factors, where CPM is totally in your control. So, you know, we've got a situation with a client that we just brought on where in the hair care niche, I think it's about $25, $30 for CPM. Now, for some of you might think that's kind of normal. For others, you'd be like, wow, that's a lot. We have other clients that are getting $10, $12, $14. And the key difference has been on their organic and their content engagement. And that's something I want to cover off today, because I've been talking about this since 2018. And some people have listened, and there's an agency out in the US. And I remember at the time, he, I think 6 months later said, what you said is absolutely true. And we're now putting it as part of our creative strategy. So they do videos and creative campaigns. And that's their competitive edge, that they're a creative agency. They also run ads, but the media buying isn't the important thing. They're not saying they're rock stars at media buying, but they are really good at creating content, and content across the funnel that's engaging, that gets good click-through rates, gets low negative feedback, gets high engagement, and it converts really well. And there are some of the signals that Facebook's looking for. So if you reverse back, 10 minutes, when I was talking about the three major players within Facebook advertising, which is you, the advertiser, Facebook, and the user, all those things that I just discussed about engaging content, high conversion rate, etc., they're the signals that Facebook looks at. And it's really important to understand that, because then you can manipulate that to your advantage. When you understand that Facebook is a robot, it's a machine, there's machine learning and tech stuff going on. It's not a human that looks at your results and your website and things like that. It's code, essentially. And when code is in place, when you understand what Facebook needs, its inputs, its levers, and things like that, that's when you can start to leverage your own your own tools, I guess, and your tool set to make sure that you can take advantage of that as well. So what I want to do is just get you to understand how Facebook sees the world. Like, one of the things that I see often is, for example, should I optimize for purchase? Why should I optimize for initiate checkout? Why should I optimize for add to cart, et cetera, et cetera? There's reasons behind some of the suggestions, for example, I make when I say, okay, if purchase is not working, try a different pixel event. And naysayers will say, well, you should always go for purchase because they're the prime users. But this is just based on experience. So I'm not giving you opinions. This is based on hard evidence and experience. So just to reiterate, I want to draw this back out and kind of show you the relationship between the user and Facebook, and you, actually, the advertiser. So, what Facebook are doing is they're pushing ads that way, and you're pushing your ads into Facebook and your spend, etc. And you want the user to take an action and ultimately enter your funnel. Like, that's your goal in most cases, is to get that user to take an action. It could be, subscribe to this. It could be a lead form. That's the funnel. It could be call us. It could be website. It could be visit us. Physical location. Doesn't matter. You've got some kind of goal in mind here, and often it's sometimes just to watch an ad, and that's fine as well. But ultimately, you've got an exit strategy. You want that user to come out of Facebook, and you want them to do something. That action costs Facebook. What I mean by that is when Facebook has that user in the news feed, as long as they stay in that news feed, Facebook has a higher chance of increasing engagement, increasing their revenue, stickability, all those kind of things. So for you to take that funnel, to take the user out and push them into a funnel, Facebook sees that as a negative action from their point of view. Obviously, they want advertisers to make money as well. So that's going to cost you money. So for example, when we say, let's say page post engagement, let's say video view, let's say traffic campaign, let's say we've got a conversion campaign. Each of these has a different value because you're going to reach out to different audiences. Now you can take one audience. It could be a 1% lookalike of purchasers. It doesn't matter. Whatever the audience is, generally these audiences are going to be cheaper, page post engagement, video views, than traffic, than conversion, because also the competition increases and also the value of what people are doing. So this is when you get clever at understanding the differences, you can actually build funnels where you can prime people in. So one of the common misunderstandings is, look, if you go into a conversion campaign, and let's say you've got the purchase pixel event, you've got the initiate checkout, you've got add to cart, for example, as the pixel events. What most people will tell you is these are the only people you want to go after, assuming purchase is what you're after, because obviously Facebook have identified them as purchasers. Either they've purchased in the last 30 days or they've purchased recently, whatever, 60, 90 days. And there's something about the user that Facebook has tagged that they're more likely to purchase than someone who's initiated checkout, for example. So, most people will say, this is your star audience and that's all you should optimize. The problem is that's also the most expensive audience generally. So what drives your decision making to use that audience or not? So once you understand what kind of makes up that the kind of process, it becomes easier to understand what to do. So one of the things that I often talk about is the B.E.A.R V algorithm. So I'll just describe that again here. I know some of you will know this already, but this plays a crucial part in understanding the algorithm and then your strategy to bring your CPMs down. So first of all, the bid makes a difference in your CPM. If you use auto bid, you're letting Facebook make that decision based on signals you're giving, and I'll talk about that signal. If you're using manual bid, you are overriding that. Now, when you go into manual bidding, and it is a bit more advanced, when you understand how to manipulate that, there is a general rule that the higher you bid, the better you can access the more expensive auctions and the better users, but it's not always the case. Then you have the estimated action rate. This is Facebook saying, right, this advertiser is after the purchase event. What's the chance of that actually happening? How do they measure that? Generally, your conversion rate %. So Facebook's looking at that and saying, right, you're optimizing for purchase. What's the chance of that purchase happening? Now, if you've got no data, so it's a new account, new website, you've never run this before, then Facebook doesn't have anything to run by. And generally, it will give you better users in the auction because it has to start collecting that data. Over time, it will track your site conversion rate and feed that into the algorithm. So this is why conversion rate is important. Then you've got user value. This is about the engagement and how users are finding your ad experience and your landing page experience, your funnel experience, etc. And Facebook places a lot of value on this in the auction. So what is user value? One of the measures, click-through rate, because if there's a really good click-through rate, it could be that your ad is engaging and relevant. They look at things like site speed. So how fast is your website loading? That plays a big difference. And Google were the first ones that that created the research on this to show site speed and advertising and ROI and CPA. Those things are all aligned. So the faster your page loads, generally the better the conversion rate. And others have done lots of studies since. Google were also the first ones, I think about 2005, somewhere around the 2000s, where they introduced a quality score. I think it was called a quality score. And that was based on something very similar. So Facebook borrowed that and built that into their own algorithm because they're like, that makes sense. Because if the user has a good experience, the ad is good, the ad engagement's good, the complaints are low, the conversion's high, the page loads fast, et cetera, equals the user is happy, equals the advertiser gets good performance, equals everyone's happy. So things like click-through rate, site speed, but there's also other signals that Facebook gives you as well. So you've got the quality engagement scores as well within Facebook as well. So previously this was the relevance score, and now Facebook has broken that down into 3 different measures, which looks at your essentially looking at your targeting, looking at your ad engagement, and also your landing page experience. So this is what Facebook break that down into. If your targeting is good, your ad experience is good, your landing page experience is good, that plays a big part into reducing your CPMs because you're giving the user a good experience. So this is why I think that unless you're seriously taking your lander and your funnel into account when you're running campaigns, you're missing out on a huge part of the equation of getting the low CPMs and getting the best auctions in the best users in the auctions. So there is a correlation between getting the best users and also the CPM score. It's not always that the CPM is cheapest for the best users. Sometimes it's more expensive, but maybe the conversion rate goes up as well. So that's something to bear in mind. And then you've got things like the negative signals at the ad level. So negative ad signals. So for example, when you have an ad, you can choose to stop seeing ads by this advertiser. You can also choose to report a complaint, like this is a spam, this is harassment, this is that. What Facebook are trying to do is ask the user specifically and say, are you happy with this ad? And if that user comes back with a negative signal, that has a massive negative impact on that ad's performance. So sometimes you'll see that the costs for specific ads go up, but actually maybe the ad set overall is okay and the other ads are okay. If I see that, it gives me an indication that maybe there's a problem at the ad level. So, that's one of the signals to look for. But the other one, which I think goes neglected, is also comments. Because when you get negative comments in your ads, they can stack up. The more and more people that add negative sentiment, so Facebook are looking at the comments as well as the engagement overall, that can also have an impact of higher CPM, because Facebook are now punishing you. This is Facebook's way of saying, hey guys, there's a problem here. You need to sort this out because the user's not happy. And if the user's not happy, hey, we're not happy either. So we're going to charge you more. So there's, on the one side, if I go back to the previously when I talk about external factors and a few things you can't control, you should understand that there's so much more in your control when you understand what Facebook are after. So this is why I place so much emphasis on conversion rate, on landing page speed, on ad quality, and also the fact that, when I do my targeting, I don't put as much effort into my audiences as I do my creative and my offer. Because the thing is, when you've got a high click-through rate but a low conversion rate, that's telling Facebook that there's a disconnect here. So I don't want your takeaway to be the highest click-through rate is the best click-through rate. No, you want to balance between a good click-through rate and a good conversion rate. And I'm sure the question will be, well, what is a good click-through rate? What is a good conversion rate? Generally, this is just a universal thing, and it will kind of depend across niche and vertical. Click-through rates between 1% and 3%, for example, are generally okay. When it's below 1%, something's telling me your targeting is off or your messaging is off. So there's a problem there. So that's the kind of range I'd be looking for. And again, it depends on niche and things like that. But that's what I'd be aiming for on my click-through rate. On my conversion rate, this is dependent on your average order value and where the product sits in terms of how easy it is to explain and understand. So, I use Maslow's hierarchy of needs to understand where that product sits in terms of that person's needs. I use what I call the core four, and I look at kind of breaking out the key reasons why someone will want to buy. So does it solve a problem? Does it create a new opportunity? Those come into constructing my ads because I want to combine a good click-through rate with a good conversion rate. Conversion rate is not just what you do on your website. So conversion rate isn't, I'm going to create an amazing landing page and I'm just going to drive loads of traffic into it and things are going to be great. Conversion rate is equally traffic quality and landing page and funnel quality. So you need to balance both of these out. So what I would be looking at is, whilst I'm trying to work on the ads to create a good click-through rate, I'm also measuring and monitoring my conversion rate as well. That's exactly what Facebook are looking at, and I know that. So that's why I'm trying to balance those things out, so that I'm giving Facebook the best positive signals. And by the way, on most of my accounts, I rarely do manual bidding. The reason for that is when you've got a really good conversion rate, when you've got a really good click-through rate, and all of these, you're giving Facebook all the right signals about what's happening, Facebook automatically bid you at the highest level to get the best user, because it's in Facebook's interest now, because what you're saying is, I'm giving the user the best experience I can. And therefore, with the funnel performing, Facebook looks at that and says, I'm going to give you more traffic. I'm actually going to bid higher for you because you're doing our job for us. You're giving the user a great experience. I've got all the signals I need. I can see what's going on. I'm going to keep bidding higher and higher for you, and you're going to win more auctions. That's Facebook helping you out. And it doesn't mean your CPMs necessarily go up. Sometimes they will, just because you're accessing more premium audiences. But when you're doing manual bidding and all the signals are all set, when you're doing auto bidding, and when all the signals are set up in a positive way, then Facebook just lets it go. And this is where we are able to scale up using auto bid because we put a lot of time into working this out. And I see so many advertisers leaving money on the table, and instead what they do is they go into manual bid. Now on manual bid, you can override Facebook's view of how good you are as an advertiser. So for example, I see forum group messages all the time about, things weren't working. I use this manual bid strategy. Now all of a sudden things are working, but my costs have gone up, and things become quite manual. And one thing about the way I like to run my ad campaigns is to minimize the amount of effort for the maximum number of results. So for example, when we've got our campaigns and our funnels really working as well as they can be, and we've built our ad campaign funnels in the best way, we're choosing the right objectives, we're doing everything that Facebook needs, you actually find that you can spend more and spend less time on your ads because everything's just working in the way Facebook needs it to work. This is the technical side of Facebook. So, for example, in the BPM method, when I talk about B, which is the brand part of BPM, brand-driven performance marketing, everything that goes into my ad campaigns is all about understanding the user. I want to really get my ads to the point where I really can speak their language. I understand their pain points. I can relay a story or a creative that shows them that I understand and I've got a solution for them. That kind of effort right up front, that's where we actually spend a lot of time, not just launching our campaigns, but reviewing every 2 to 4 weeks. What can we do to bring new ideas into this? Because the stronger this works, the less you have to worry about your targeting. So let me give you an example. If I go back to my example of women 25 to 45, let's say, and I'm doing a hair care campaign, well, guess what? Most of that audience have hair, right? Most of those people will care about their hair. Some of those people want to spend more time on it than others, et cetera, et cetera. With that in mind, is it better for me to go down to so many levels on understanding their interests and doing interest-based targeting and splitting and laser targeting and things that were more prevalent back in 2015 that are less required now? Or what if I just had an ad which called out my ideal prospect's pain point? So I'm not just going out there and say, hey, if you have hair, we have a solution for you to make the care easier. No, what's the actual pain point? So for example, let's say that you've got hair that's generally dry and it's brittle and things like that. That's a part of a problem. And if your problem is you don't have a hair care product that nourishes it or whatever it is, I'm just making it up now. If I can identify your core pain, and bear in mind that audience, 25 to 45 females, let's say US, it's going to be a huge audience. Within that one audience, there's going to be multiple angles. If each of my ads is just focusing on those different angles, then I'm going to opt in the people that are interested, and the people that are not interested are going to just ignore the ad. That plays a part in the user value, because what we're doing now is we're attracting good quality engagement. So that's the likes, the comments, but also the clicks. So therefore, if I'm getting a click-through rate of 1 or 2 or 3%, and I'm getting good conversion because the ad and the lander and the funnel, they're all congruent. Congruent means that whatever I'm talking about in my ad, I'm also talking about on my lander, and I'm reinforcing through my funnel, and I'm carrying on that conversation. So for example, I've spoken previously about, in some cases, I would create a landing page per persona or avatar or problem. So for example, maybe I've got a male product, maybe I've got a female product, maybe my lander just talks to them in this is great for whatever hair it is, etc. It doesn't mean you have to have a separate landing page in each case, but what I'm trying to do is maximize my conversion rate after I get good quality users clicking through the ad, so that when Facebook sees that data coming back, they're like, this user is having a great experience, they're converting, lower CPMs, better users in the auction. So everything comes around in that kind of format to make sure that when I'm running these campaigns, I'm constantly looking at giving Facebook high quality signals back so that they can keep giving me the best users for the best price. So for example, when I talk about CPM, sometimes when you have a high CPM, but you also have a high conversion rate, that generally means that you're accessing more premium users in the auction, And premium meaning, for example, if you even take purchases, there's going to be a split of purchases between those that have a high average order value, those that are bought repeatedly through Facebook ads, those that are bought in your particular niche. There's so many different levels, even just within that small group of purchases, for example, and that's going to dictate how much you pay, but also the conversion rate as well. So they're all just different factors that go into understanding the conversion rate. And that's also why, like, in the BPM method, we have a whole section dedicated to cost control and cost reduction and things like that. And each of these strategies are as you need them. So they're not designed as you need to go through all of them sequentially. When you understand the different types of elements that go into cost control, and the first part is just understanding that. For example, one of them is page engagement. Now, with the Facebook page, this is something which I spoke to the Facebook auction insights team back in 2018 to understand organic reach of pages and the link between Facebook pages and ad accounts. One of the things that they told me at the time was so it wasn't quite on record, but this is through testing we've found this as well. The more engaged people are on your Facebook page, the lower your CPMs become as well. What's the reason for that? We can thank low quality drop shippers, low quality affiliates, low quality brands that don't care about the user experience for this. Because what happens is, and this is a typical example, if you're a drop shipper and you're only here for the money, you're not really caring about your page. So you're not going to update your page. You're not going to put a nice banner on. You're not going to worry about engagement and things like that. Facebook know that. So they've built that into their model to say, if this advertiser does not care about their page, well, guess what? We're going to increase your cost. It's not as simple as that, but that's one of the big factors that go in. So understanding how important your page is to your CPMs is super important as well. And there are strategies, obviously, for improving that. Then we have what I call the Viper test. So viral page engagement reach test. What we're trying to do here is, when we're in a position where we need to improve the engagement at a page level, we start testing different page posts to see which ones are the most engaging, promote them more, and create more content like that on our page as well. And that allows you to also have ideas for your ad campaigns. So that's a whole strategy in its own page as well. Page content research, it's kind of as it is finding out what things people are engaging with as well. Page quality scores. So for example, especially for e-com and maybe some other niches as well, if I mentioned just now that Facebook are looking at low quality brands and sites that don't care about their page, Facebook also look at which ones care about their customers. That's why Facebook launched the survey 2 to 4 weeks after someone's purchased, to ask them essentially, were you happy with this brand? Were you happy with the product, etc.? And why do they introduce that? Because of low quality sellers out there. So for example, if your page score is low, you can get punished. And in fact, you do get punished with low CPMs as well. So it's like everywhere you look, that cost that you're paying is being tested. Facebook are testing you on so many different levels. I would argue that you should not be waiting for Facebook to ask your customers if they're happy. You should be doing that yourself. And we've got strategies on that as well on kind of improving that. Ad quality scores, we've just talked about that, and looking at the ad level and loading up the 3 engagement columns and looking at the scores. Now, what Facebook do is they judge you on who you're bidding against, so the other competitors, and how they are performing. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out on this is, if you have, for example, let me just bring back my drawing utensil. So if I just move this to the side. So one important thing I want to get across from this is a common question I have on, well, why should we optimize for different parts of the funnel? Now, let's say you've got advertiser A and you've got advertiser B. So Facebook sends 100 clicks into each. So Facebook are you create your clicks from the ads and 100 clicks come through. Let's say, for example, advertiser A converts 5 people from every 100 click, advertiser B, 1 person. So essentially that's your conversion rate, 5% and 1%. When Facebook look at this, what are they seeing? They're seeing that advertiser A is actually converting more people than advertiser B. So there must be something about advertiser A that's performing better. What they don't care about, or maybe don't look at as much, is what the average order value is. So for example, let's say you have a $50 AOV here, and you have a $350 AOV here. You might look at that and say, actually, a 1% conversion rate is okay. It's an expensive product. For this one, you're like, I'm really happy, 5% conversion rate. If you look at that, your return on ad spend could be lower for your $50 product. Maybe it's okay. Your return on ad spend could be really wild, and it's great. For example, it could cost you $50 to acquire that $50 customer. Facebook don't really care if you're making money or not. Obviously, they look at ROAS and they're trying to give you better users. But in my experience and running this for many years, conversion rate has a bigger impact on what Facebook see on your site than average order value. So obviously, if you're doing webinars and leads and things like that, then generally conversion rate is what you're looking at. That conversion rate, Facebook is looking at based on what you're optimizing for. So if you're optimizing for conversion and purchases, then Facebook's looking at that purchase conversion rate. If you're optimizing for initiate checkout, if you're optimizing for add to cart, that's the conversion rate that Facebook is looking at. So for example, if for every 100 people that click through here, let's say 30 people add to cart, so 30% go to add to cart, maybe here also 30 people add to cart. Now all of a sudden, your conversion rates are actually similar. So you've got a 30% conversion rate here. What happens here, Facebook says, actually both advertisers are performing really well, and I'll give them more users like that because they're given a good experience. Your CPM generally drops and you get access to better users. One argument is if you're optimizing for add to cart, you get lower quality users. Generally, what this means is they might not be identified as purchasers. Maybe they haven't purchased in 60 or 90 days. Maybe they've just been adding to cart more than anything. Does not mean they are not purchasers. So for example, when we do higher ticket promotions, we often test purchase, but then we end up going with add to cart or initiate checkout because this gives us top of funnel stability. What that means is when you're running your campaigns, $1,000 a day, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 at the top of the funnel, because we can get stability at the top of the funnel and because our retargeting campaigns are working so well, we actually get better performance. And what happens now is retargeting is optimized for purchase. And in that case, we could be converting at 5% or more. Facebook sees our retargeting campaign and says, hey, that's really good. You're getting a really high conversion rate. We'll give you more users. At the top of the funnel, we're converting at 30%. And Facebook's like, hey, you're performing really well. We'll give you some better users. So I want you to understand why these strategies come into play when it comes to stabilizing your ad account and giving you good performance. Not to say all the time, it has to be ATC, but certainly the higher the average order value, the higher, the longer it takes someone to generally convert. So for example, even we've got an apparel company at the moment, the average order value is about $100. We know whatever return on ad spend number we get today, in 2 weeks' time, it will double because whatever clicks we generate today, they will trickle into sales in 5, 7, 10 days because that's the consideration process that people go through. You can't force that. You can try and run even more retargeting ads, but that's through 18 months, 2 years of running ads for this particular brand. We know that there is that conversion path. So we do, top of funnel is to bring them in, and then we work on optimizing and converting where we can through retargeting and trying to get them through to our email list. But that has given us on that particular account, which I think it's like $1 million a month in revenue on that particular account. The CPM in the US for females, I think 25 to 50 is about $10 or $12. And it's been consistent like that for years. That means that we are doing many of the things right. I wouldn't say everything, there's still a few opportunities, but that means we're doing so much right to tell Facebook that we care about the user. So going back to our initial drawing, we've worked really hard on giving Facebook the signals. And that means that Facebook give us the best users at the best cost. And that's hard to compete against when you're a competitor, because when you start to enter the market that we're in right now, you're not going to get $10, $12 for that audience. It takes time. And it means going through what we've done and set up and step by step, bringing the right things in. Then you've got auction insights and campaign objectives and different strategies. But the key thing I want you to take away from this is, when we talk about CPMs and costs going up, separating the external from the internal and realizing just how much is in your control. So, you know, even within the BPM method, it's the third part of our optimizations. I talk about average order value optimization because that gives you a bit of space to give you some profitability so you can scale up. And obviously it's more for businesses that have a variable average order value. Then I talk about conversion rate optimization, and there's a reason that section is so deep, because that plays a big part on overall more sales, lower costs, et cetera, and then we come into optimizing our costs. So there's a lot to unpack from this, and I'd suggest, you know, thinking about where you are right now and where your biggest opportunities are. So if you're converting low right now, is it because your traffic isn't as strong as it needs to be? Do some analysis on that landing page and figure out what you can do better, whether it's the traffic or the targeting or the ad or the creative. And generally that's where I would start. Then I look at my landing page. Then I look at my landing page speed. And I'm looking at kind of ways to optimize that. And it's step by step working that out so that you can get your CPMs reduced. So that was a lot to take in, I'm sure. Hopefully that's given you a lot of food for thought. I'm just going to have a look at the questions and see what's come up. Is the Q&A box. So Jay, when you run a collaboration campaign, do you set the min ad set spend per day to divide the budget equally across all ad sets each day? Or do you leave some room? So first of all, just give me questions on CPM. So this is a coaching session where I pick out a topic and we go through detail on that particular topic. I'll answer some other stuff as well, but you know, this is really about making sure you understood the key elements of CPM, the challenges, the opportunities, etc. So just fire over questions on cost and cost control, because you know, if you're, for example, running a business where Q4 is important, you would generally want to make sure by the time you enter and you're through Q3, you've done all your cost optimizations and then you're ready to scale up in Q4 as well. So it's just really important to understand this topic as well. So Lars, speaking about clients and saying spending 6 to 8K like it's nothing, that's a goal for me. Listen, look, we've all started somewhere. So, you know, that's certainly not an overnight thing. When you're talking about post engagement, is it about the Facebook page, not Instagram? So I'm yet to see any data which suggests the Instagram page has an impact on CPM and auction for ads. Maybe there is, I just haven't had a look at Instagram, but certainly without doubt, 100% your Facebook page does have an impact on both CPM and the quality of the audience as well. So Simon, is CPM the main metric to focus on, or do you combine CPM and CPC? Simon, CPM is not a main metric at all. It's like the fuel gauge or the temperature gauge in your car. When you're driving, you don't look at that to dictate what you're actually doing. If your fuel is low, then you know you need to take an action. If your fuel is high, you just kind of keep an eye on it. That's how I see CPM. So when I'm running ad accounts, I'm not constantly tracking CPM. I might have a look once a week just to see what the trends are like. You know, generally I don't look at CPC in too much detail unless my cost per acquisition is not performing, because cost per click and conversion rate are the things that impact cost per acquisition. So if I know my CPA is not in a good place, then I'll look at CPC and stuff like that. So I don't want you to take away that now you need to monitor CPM every day and make decisions based on that. That's not the case. Like I mentioned in previously, if your CPM is not in a good place, but overall your ROAS or your CPA is in a good place, it's just something you need to keep an eye on the side. If all your metrics are out and CPM is super high, then maybe you need to prioritize it. So Lars, I see most brands focusing more on IG than Facebook. And that does happen as well. And I think it's just getting the balance right between what you're doing on both those pages as well. What does good page engagement look like? So posts per week, engagement per post. I think I shared something many months ago on this. So when you look at your number of fans, generally the most you can reach organically, and this is just a generalization, is 10% of your fans. So if you've got 10,000 fans, as a general rule, you can't access more than 1,000 people, just the way the organic algorithm works. And it could be less in many cases as well. So we just did this analysis for one of our clients, and they've got a UK and a US Facebook page for their two separate businesses. And the UK page averages 30% organic reach. So on average, 30% of the total number of fans are getting are responding and engaging with our page post. And then it's 5% for the US. What's the difference? In the UK, for the last probably 18 months, they've posted every single day. They post engaging content, they engage with their customers, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the UK page has like 50,000, maybe more than that. And they've paid a lot more attention to their UK page. In the US, I believe they have 6,000 fans and they barely post. So that's the simplest example of post per week engagement and stuff like that. And they're only reaching 5% of those 6,000. So what, 300 people, that's not a lot. So in order to increase that, and we've just taken on the US responsibility, we are going to go through these exact same steps to get that engagement up. Now, 6,000 fans is not that much. So we're looking to increase the number of likes on the page. And the best way we've found to do that is when you're running ads or you're running content on your page, click on the little like icon on the post. It will pop up the people that have liked the post or the ad, and it will show you who's actually liked your page already. And all you need to do is hit the invite link to invite them to like your page. There are external tools to do this. Bear in mind, they're all against policy. So I would not recommend using them. I know a lot of people do. Just bear that in mind that it's against policy. So if you do use an external tool for this, and there's Chrome plugins, make sure it's as non-robotic as possible. So robotic would be it goes through, it clicks it, and it just, every half a second says invite, 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 invite. That's a guaranteed profile ban or going into Facebook jail, which means you can't like or comment or share on a post. But the way we do it, for example, is we have our customer service rep once a week just do this process, but vary the time between invites as well. And it just helps you to bulk up the likes on the page, which then helps you to work on engagement and things like that, because these are people who have shown an interest in your post or your post or your page publication as well. Simon, is unique outbound click-through more important than standard click-through? So I use outbound click-through. I don't use unique, but either is fine. But I would say outbound click is better because when you've got multiple creatives running, so for example, you've got instant collection ads, if you're using link click-through rate, often it will include links within the actual instant collection as well, which don't count. Like if someone clicks a link and opens up and expands the products that they're looking at, that can count as a link click, but it doesn't count as a click into your actual website. That's why outbound click was actually created a few years ago. So I prefer using outbound click for sure. Great competitive advantage. There's not many people using it. Did you speak about Welling Media that is focusing on content? Absolutely. And honestly, he's taken that knowledge up to so many new levels. It's amazing what those guys have done, but it's just so simple. Like if you want a case study, go look at Welling Media, go look at what they're actually producing and kind of how they're going about doing it. They focus probably 80%, 90% on creative and offers and messaging and ads and creatives and funnels, and probably 10 to 20% on media buying. Compare that to most ad agencies out there where it's 80% media buying and only 20% on creative and stuff, and look who's successful and who's not. And I think the clues are there. Raphael talked about conversion rate in prospecting and retargeting. Does it have an impact on prospecting if you have better numbers in the retargeting? So does it have an impact on the prospecting? I think overall it can have an impact at the account level and your pixels collecting data. But the thing I'm looking at is the signals I'm giving back to Facebook at the ad set and the ad level. So obviously, if you're running prospecting, then the ad is different at the top of the funnel than if you're running ads for your retargeting. So that's what I'm looking at. Can I give Facebook positive signals at every interaction? So when that ad's in that newsfeed, can I give Facebook the positive signals that my ad is good, my click-through rate's good, my negative experience is low, et cetera, et cetera. Then once they come through the site, like I said, Facebook looking at page speed, funnel performance. Are people, like, for example, one of the big negative signals that Facebook pick up is if someone clicks an ad and they land on your site, but within 30 seconds, they bounce back and go back to Facebook, essentially that's a bounce. So, talk about bounce rate in Google Analytics. Facebook see that as a bounce as well, if they don't take an action. So the action could be that they add to cart, they sign up to your email, and whatever it is, maybe view another page, that's a positive action. So if you, for example, and this is why I've been telling people for many years, don't delay your pixel fire. Because how does Facebook know whether someone's engaging on your page? It's because the pixel exists. That pixel is collecting all the HTML on your website. And when someone clicks from Facebook to your site, the pixel is the beacon. It's the thing that's telling Facebook what's actually happening on the site. So I know there's been some talk over many years about people saying, oh, you should delay the pixel fire and, so that your retargeting audiences have the best people. Well, actually, if you delay your pixel fire, what does Facebook see? It sees nothing. So if it sees nothing, Facebook's assuming your page is still loading. So, you might, I've had lots of discussions about this to explain to people why it's wrong. But if you delay your pixel firing, let's say 10 seconds, as far as Facebook's concerned, your page took 10 seconds to load. That's not good. So, that's just something a side thing to bear in mind as well. How does CPM compare for that company in the UK and US? In the UK, we're getting £9 CPMs. In the US, we're getting $25 to $30 CPM. So it's a huge difference. And it's the same product. So they've set it up separately, that there's a UK and a US base, separate pages, separate fulfillment, etc. And for the last 12, 18 months, they've just not taken US seriously enough. And then they've considered shutting down the US business. And we've told them and actually, if you look at the conversion rates, US converts at the same conversion rate as the UK, which is, so it's an average order value of about $20. UK is profitable, so you can imagine our CPA is that much lower. The conversion rates in the UK and US are between 5 and 7% for this product. So, when I look at it commercially, your product is selling. You just can't get the best price. That's an easy, or not an easy, but that's a clear path that we can follow, because if you're getting good conversion rates, which are matching UK, you've got the same average order value, but your cost is that much higher, we can bring that down. And that's what we're focusing on as well. Lars, client of mine selling bags, experience that the email list is super vital. Focus on lead gen for VIP club. Does that affect CPM too? As it should get high conversion rates? Absolutely, that helps. So yeah, that's a good thing running, and this is something I really, really recommend you do more. Doesn't matter what you're selling, what niche, what product, etc., whether it's a service, whether it's e-com or anything like that. Don't not do lead gen. Like, do lead gen, because especially with the iOS 14 changes coming up and the lack of tracking and things like that, I think lead gen is going to come back to the forefront of, if I can't track you all the way through my funnel, then give me your email so I can track you through email, because that's completely yours at that point. You don't rely on Facebook and the pixel and things like that. Yes, you can still keep serving them ads, but pulling them out is definitely a recommendation. If you're running a lead campaign and it's in Facebook using lead forms, or you're just using a website lead, then as long as you're getting a good conversion rate and Facebook seeing good conversion rate come back, then that's a positive signal as well. Simon, do you use the same metrics for lead gen ads, or are they more expensive? Do you use the same metrics, or are they more expensive? I'm not sure the connection between the two. So for lead gen ads, I'm looking at cost per click and conversion rate as to what my cost per lead is. Like, they're the two metrics that influence that. So for example, when I'd run lead forms, generally conversion could be 20, 30%, and the click-through cost per click is generally low. However, and this is probably 8 out of 10 times, when I've run lead form lead gen versus website lead gen, although it costs me more on the website to capture the lead, the conversion, the quality is generally better. Why is that? There's a few different factors. Number one, when you do a lead gen on Facebook, it defaults by pulling in their email that they use for Facebook. Now, me, for example, I signed up with Facebook in 2007, and it's an email account I don't really use. So if I was to see a lead ad and I clicked it and I just used the default Facebook email, and I wasn't really thinking about changing it, then that email that you send me for that amazing offer or funnel or anything like that, it's probably going to end up in my kind of spam email address, and I'm probably not going to see it. And that's something I've found through testing as well. Whereas when you take them through a website experience and you talk a bit more, you've got some more real estate, and you say, enter your best email address, and make sure you whitelist us and things like that, you can communicate that better. So there's just something as a generalization that we've found that running website leads generates better quality leads as well. So it's something for you to test as well. So Jay, I'll come back to your question. Calibration testing, I would use CBO, and I just let the budget run until I've hit my maximum number of impressions. So I don't really think about it too much. My question is, how much can I afford to spend on this test, and how quickly do I want results? So that's really the measure I'm using there. So Jay says, if ad sets in the calibration campaign go into learning limited, does that affect the test negatively? I don't worry about learning limited, because I'm not looking to scale up or doing anything. I have my set goal, 5,000 impressions, different campaign objectives. What's my CPM? What my other lead metrics look like? So I don't look at learning limited at all. Last question on the calibration campaign, should I use 1 day or 7 day? I generally use 1 day, and just kind of use that as a blanket across all of those as well. Cool. Well, I think we're done. So hopefully that made sense. I would love to know what you've taken away, share with me what's worked for you from improving your CPMs and what you're looking at. Post it in the group, happy to give you feedback and make sure you're on the right path. But I just wanted to make sure, especially because there's a lot of conversation happening about CPM right now. It is towards the end of March, and this is the typical time every single year that this happens, but it does happen in other quarters as well. Don't just throw the baby out with the bathwater and scrap all the great stuff you've done over the last few months and stress out because the CPMs are high. Could be because of external factors, but make sure that you do understand what goes into causing higher CPMs and what's in your control to reduce them. So just to repeat, reducing CPM isn't the primary strategy when we go to run ads, but it's something we keep an eye on, because reducing CPM, it can be harder. It's more, I wouldn't say it's harder, it's more time consuming than doing conversion rate optimization, rotating your ads, improving your landing page speed, etc. But it can have the biggest impact on improving your results. So just make sure you're at least considering what's in your control for CPM, and understand that you guys have access to all of that in the BPM method, which, by the way, those sections on improving average order value, conversion rate, and costs, even right now, we use as a reference guide. So like, the key thing about the BPM method is it's going to be rare that you've been through the whole training and you just understand it and you're going to be able to apply everything at the right time. Use it as a reference system. Don't think that you have to go through it all at once and understand it all. Even my team right now, they're going back through the training on the Viper tests and then being able to reduce CPMs based on that, because now they need that for the use case for this particular two particular clients. And that's how it's designed. So there are certain parts you will learn and kind of probably not visit again. There's other parts that you just keep referencing back. And like I say, that's the same operating system we use. And I'd encourage you to use it in a similar way as well. So hopefully that was useful. Have a great week, and we'll see you back online soon.